Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this session with Keelan McDowell, our product manager from Google Cloud, and me, Crispin Velas, Cloud Vertex AI lead for Google Cloud Consulting. Today is a very exciting day. We're going to be covering how you can build transformative applications with Gemini. I'll hand it off to you, Keelan.
Great. Thank you, Crispin. And thank you all so much for joining us, and happy holidays. We have a quick and deep agenda for you today. We'll be giving you a quick overview of the new Gemini model, what we announced last week, and what's available for you developers out there. Crispin will get into some hands-on demos, to go through some code samples, really get into some details on what you can actually build with this model. We'll talk a little bit about some of the resources that we have for you to get started with some of those examples that he's showing. And then finally, we'll hop into some Q&A. All right, so with that, let's get right into the Gemini era. So I'm sure many of you probably heard the announcements over the last few weeks. We at Google are very excited to announce our Gemini model here. And this is really for us the next chapter of Gen AI innovation. So this is our most capable, most general model, multimodal, and a large-scale collaboration across many different teams in the AI space at Google, including Google DeepMind and Google Research. So super excited to make this available both in some of our consumer products like Bard and Pixel, and for you developers through APIs on cloud, which we'll be talking about today. All right, so what makes Gemini so special, and what makes it really a kind of a new era for us in the AI space? The first point is that it's a state-of-the-art natively multimodal model. So this is not a bunch of different language models and image models strung together. This is a model that was trained from the ground up on multimodal inputs, and is really designed to be able to deal with those multimodal prompts and use cases that it's optimized for. Finally, it's really optimized for developers while preserving choice, meaning that it's performant for many use cases. It is multimodal, as we mentioned. It runs on our TPUs, but it also has a lot of flexibility to support a lot of different use cases across industries. And then finally, very important to us at Google, it's built with responsibility and safety at the core. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of the safety considerations that we've taken into account in building this model, but we're very proud that that's a core piece of our architecture when building Gemini. All right, so again, the state-of-the-art capabilities that you're going to see with Gemini compared to some of our previous large language models is that, again, it's natively multimodal, so it's meant to seamlessly be able to understand lots of different modalities. So we'll show you some examples here with the endpoints starting with image and text, but over time you're going to see that to develop and expand to many more modalities, and it's really set up in a way that's going to allow us to scale across those modalities in the future. State-of-the-art performance across a wide variety of tasks. Again, I would encourage you to take a look at the Gemini technical report that was published along with the announcement last week. But you can see that it's really outperforming human experts in a variety of benchmarks. And we'll link to that technical report in the chat in just a minute here for you to check out. And then finally, sophisticated reasoning. So I know many of you have use cases that involves complicated prompting like chain of thought or other very verbose types of prompts that require real advanced types of reasoning. This model is exceptional at those types of use cases, and so we've really focused on making sure that Gemini can perform exceptionally well for those types of applications. All right, and again, highly optimized by while preserving choice. So this is really where Google has a unique advantage. As many of you are aware, we have our uniquely Google-generated TPUs, which is our own hardware that's set up just for serving these types of large models. It's designed to be more reliable in terms of training, more efficient in terms of serving, and a lot faster than previous models that we've offered. And so what this really means for us is that it gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of offering a lot of different versions of the model. And we'll get into a few more examples in a minute here, but you can see that we have at the one extreme Gemini Ultra, which is going to be our largest, most capable model, all the way down to Gemini Nano, which is a very small model that's optimized to be served on hardware and starting with the Pixel 8. All right, and then built with responsibility and safety at the core. So ever since we've started introducing our foundation models with Palm last year, we've really strived to develop a robust safety evaluation framework and build a team of experts that can help us identify risk, perform novel research, and really collaborate with not just Googlers, but folks outside of Google to get a diverse set of opinions on different areas of risk and safety. And so this is not something that we do as an afterthought after we develop the model. It's an integral to the actual development of the model. And we make sure that it's part of our considerations in terms of the pre-training set, in terms of the safety filters that we apply, and ultimately in terms of how we actually develop it into a commercial product for cloud. And so just as a quick recap for those of you that are using Gemini on cloud, these are the models that you're going to encounter today through the endpoints that we have available, those top two there. So Gemini Pro is our best model for scaling across a variety and range of use cases. This has been available since December 13th. Hopefully a few of you may have even had a chance to give it a try. It's in public preview currently. And that's actually available in two different endpoints. We have a text-only endpoint, so that's accepting text as an input and generating text as an output. And then we have the Pro Vision model, which is actually multimodal, so accepting text, image, and video as an input and generating text as an output. In early 2024, Q1, we expect to make Gemini Ultra available. This is going to be our largest and most capable model for very complex tasks. We're already starting to explore a limited private preview for early next year and expect to have more announcements for that model to come. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, we do have this Gemini Nano model. I mention it less because it's something that you're going to be using on cloud, but if you are a Pixel user or using some of these other Google hardwares, you might encounter this model. Okay. And so as you'll see when Crispin dives into his demo here, Gemini is built on Vertex AI, which is really our platform for AI and ML developers. And we've tried to be extremely thoughtful in terms of how we've brought Gemini to developers and taken a lot of feedback from developers over the last year as we've sort of continued to roll out more and more products in the generative AI space. So a couple things that I wanted to highlight for you developers that are going to be building applications on Gemini. Number one, we have an extensive quick start library, especially around Gemini, with code samples, jump starts, and these are oriented for developers of all levels. So this is something that we started developing earlier this year and have really extended quite substantially for Gemini, and we'll make sure that you guys have the links to get going with that. Number two, we have free developer labs and training resources across Vertex products, and this is available at Cloud Skills Boost. So these are ways for you as a developer to try for free some of our Vertex AI services, including the Gemini model. So it's a great way both to learn and also to get a sense of the capabilities of these Vertex AI services. Third, and this will be especially, I think, exciting for a lot of you application developers and folks that are really starting to integrate large language models into production services. We have robust integrations with popular third-party developer tools, including LangChain, which many of you know, Llama Index, Pinecone, and Weaviate. So we're super excited to have these partners who we can work with to help you make it easier to build on top of our model and turn these into really transformative applications. And then finally, because we're in the Google ecosystem, of course, we have many packages and extensions that natively support Google Cloud Foundation models in Google App Developer platforms. So if you're familiar with Firebase, if you're familiar with Flutter, all of those have packages or extensions that allow you to actually activate these models from within those platforms. All right. So the easiest place to get going trying Gemini today, if you are a Google Cloud customer, is to just hop into this new multimodal space in our AI Studio prompting playground. So for those of you that are familiar with our previous model, PaLM, and have maybe spent a little bit of time in AI Studio testing prompts or experimenting with our prompt gallery, this is really an extension of that, but we're really excited to see this new multimodal aspect. So you'll see that these are prompt examples that use images, that use videos alongside text. So if you're just kind of getting going with your ideation and maybe don't have a prompt to test or a use case quite yet, this is a really great space to kind of just get your feet wet, and then you can expand to writing your own prompts and developing your own use cases. All right, and then just to kind of bring it all home for folks that are familiar with Vertex, or if you're new to the Vertex conversation, this is what the entire Vertex stack looks like. And so you can see that Gemini is sitting right there in kind of the middle of the layer. So we've got Gemini in our model garden alongside 130 other first-party and third-party models, including quite a robust library of open source models. Again, this is really meant to cultivate developer flexibility and choice. So we think that you're going to be really happy with Gemini, but we also want to make it clear that we make many different models available and are aware that developers have many different types of needs. So Model Garden is a terrific place to start your journey as a developer in Vertex if you are starting to kind of think about how to incorporate these models into your workflow. On top of that, for developers, the other thing that I want to highlight is that we have many sort of tools to make it easier to develop on these models as you get going. So tools like connectors, grounding, the prompt libraries, the ability to distill and do a lot of different types of tuning. All of these capabilities are designed to help you as a developer make your model more performant, more custom to your domain, and more relevant to your use case. And then on top of that, we have many other sort of more out-of-the-box solutions for developers that are looking to get going quickly, like our search and conversation experience, Duet AI. We'll save the deep dive on those topics for another session, but all of this is part of the Vertex AI ecosystem. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Crispin.
All right, thanks, Keelan. That was a very, very interesting introduction and overview of our Gemini platform, right? So right now, what we want to deep dive into is, how we've built this platform and what our focus has been for developers and built by developers, right? So there are two core components that we'd like for you to, take home after this session. Number one is, that Gemini Pro is available on Google AI Studio, but it's also available in Vertex AI Studio. And some of the core differences lie within what you want to do with Gemini, right? So on the left-hand side, you can see it's, if you want to leverage Google AI Studio, that's probably the fastest way to build with Gemini. It's a free web-based developer tool where with just your Google or Gmail account, you'll be able to get access to it. You can prototype and launch multiple applications very quickly with an API key, and then you can actually share with Google for model and service improvement, right? And then the other platform, if you will, is called Vertex AI Studio, and this one lives on GCP. This is for developers who actually want to scale into production and build end-to-end experiences for their users, either business or consumer users, right? So it's an enterprise-ready AI platform. You can actually use your Google Cloud platform accounts, data privacy, indemnity protection, VPCSC, CMEC, and data residency as well. You've got a lot of tools to actually customize, augment, deploy, and govern your models. This means the full end-to-end lifecycle of building a generative AI system, if you will. You're going to find a lot of tools, a lot of components to actually build end-to-end. Let's jump into it. All right. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is Google AI Studio. And where I've basically landed is on the initial UI. I had a couple of prompts that I was actually playing around with, but let me delete that very quickly. You can see I'm picking the Gemini Pro Vision model. You can actually, from this drop-down list, pick the Gemini Pro text model as well. But just to kick this off, you can see there's a couple of suggestions, right? These keep toggling through. I'm going to hit tab when I get the one that I want. And then I'll go through the other features within the studio in a moment. So by clicking tab, you can see this basically landed immediately. It grabs the image, and this is where the multimodality piece of Gemini actually comes to the table and shines, right? So this is a very basic prompt. We're going to add something a little bit more complex after this is processed. So I've asked it to identify the place where this photo was taken and provide me a brief description of the city, right? New York City, Soho neighborhood. Neighborhood is known for its cast iron architecture, cobblestone streets, art galleries, etc. Okay, that's very useful. Well, let's say I want to change what I'm doing with this image, right? I'm building a coffee brand, and I need brand name ideas as well as slogans based on the image provided. And once I run this, or while this is running, you can see additional configurations that you can play around. Temperature, which you already know, so you can play a little bit more with the verbosity of the response. I'll deep dive into the safety settings in a minute, but you can see here, the response from the same image, simply changing the prompt, is more focused, on brand name ideas, City Brew Coffee, Urban Coffee Roasters, pretty nice. I like that one. Coffee for the Urban Explorer, the taste of the city, fuel for the urban grind. That looks very interesting. All right, so you can see how you can basically leverage both images and prompting to extract information from that specific image. Now, I'll deep dive a little bit more when we get to the notebook on what you can actually do with the multimodality capabilities of Gemini. But for now, I'll just quickly explore what you have within Google AI Studio so we can jump into the Vertex AI Studio. So we covered temperature, right? You also have advanced settings around output length, top K, top P that you can basically play around. These parameters will help you, again, increase verbosity or creativity, if you want to look at it that way, or reduce and focus more on conciseness. One key component is the safety settings. As Keelan mentioned, right, we've built Gemini from the ground up for security. And with the safety settings, you can actually configure how the model is basically blocking the different content on the probability that it is harmful, right? So you've got multiple categories like harassment, hate speech, sexual, explicit, dangerous content, and you can actually play around with the levels of security that you want to work with. You can save your prompt, right? This will be basically saving it into your Google Drive. You can share your prompt. And then one very, very cool thing is that you can actually, when you get the code, let me double check if we can actually show what you get when you click on get code. Yep, there we go. You can basically call that prompt from the Gemini API. So this is really valuable for developers, right? You can just copy the code if you're working with curl commands, JavaScript, Python, if you're maybe developing within Android or using Swift. We provide you with the code snippets to actually start deploying within the specific platform that you're using. And the only thing that you need is your API key. And we'll check how you can basically get that in a minute. You can actually also open it up in Colab, and you'll get a Colab version of what you just basically ran as well, right? You just have to pick, and all of the parameters on installing the client library, importing the necessary modules, mounting the Google Drive, et cetera, is already pre-built. So this is very, very important because it actually speeds up the moving from a sandbox or developer environment like what you have here in Google AI Studio into a notebook with just one click. How do you create your API keys? You've got two options. You can create an API key in a new project, or you can actually create an API key in an existing project. So I won't go through this process as you've seen. I actually have gone through this previously, creating the API keys. And again, once you've set up your Google Cloud Console, you can actually manage those credentials within the Google Cloud Console. What you're seeing here is Google Cloud Platform. In the upper left-hand corner, you've got the navigation menu. You can literally deploy a full-fledged data center from this navigation menu, if you'd like. Okay, coming back to the Google AI Studio. So we've got our prompt, right? This is looking good. But now I want to move into a more production-ready environment, right? I went through prompt engineering techniques. I actually explored what I had to explore. And now I want to take a deeper look onto how I can basically, build this into a full-fledged application. What you're seeing here is our Google Cloud Workbench. And let me just very quickly guide you. How do you get to the Workbench? Under Vertex AI, you can see two different notebooks, Colab Enterprise. You could actually use that as well. It's an enterprise version of Colab. Or you can jump onto the Workbench. The Workbench is basically, customer and Google managed instances where you can deploy multiple ML AI frameworks, and you can basically bring that Colab notebook that you had previously onto one of these Workbench. And that is exactly what I did, a Jupyter notebook that I imported into a Vertex AI Workbench instance. All right, so you started off Google AI Studio, right? Playing around, testing out the model, running through maybe a very basic prompt engineering techniques. Now, Gemini is the way to go. You want to move into production. You want to grab what you've built and start exploring and testing in a more controlled environment. So you moved into Vertex AI Workbench. What you're seeing here is, again, a version of a similar notebook where what you're doing is to get kickstarted, you install the Vertex AI SDK, Google Cloud AI platform, you download everything that you need. One key component is that you need to restart your current runtime to basically get all of the previous package updates and library updates within the kernel available. If you were running this notebook within Google Colab, you'd probably have to run authentication and then authentication against your GCP or Google Cloud, platform account. And after that, it's pretty straightforward. Number one, import your libraries. You can include the generation config, generative model, harm category, harm block, threshold, image, and part. This is what we're going to be using. These last two we're going to be using for the multimodality use cases that we're going to be covering. And these previous ones we're going to be using for the text use cases that we're going to be covering as well. The generation config is a very, very useful method that you're going to be able to call upon when you're basically running your models. Obviously, because we don't know where the demo gods are favoring today or who they're favoring today. I actually ran this previously. I will run some of these live in a moment, but you can see loading the model is pretty straightforward. Model equals generative model Gemini Pro is the one that we're basically using. Generate text from the text prompts, and then my first prompt is focused on something very basic. Let's start with something pretty easy. Write a poem about Colombia, and this is basically the output that you have, right, in English. If I then prompt it to prompt or translate the output into Spanish, you can see it's going to provide the output in English, right? Colombia, land of enchantment, oh Colombia, land of enchantment, etc., etc. And then it'll take into account the second part of the instruction, translate the output into Spanish, and it will actually provide a response in the translation, right? Colombia, tierra de encanto, or Colombia, tierra de encanto, and you'll have basically the previous English prompt translated into Spanish. So this is a small showcase of Gemini's power, multitasking, where you can prompt it for a poem for Colombia, but then you can actually ask it to translate it into Spanish afterwards, and you get both responses in line. The next one is we prompt them all to basically create a numbered list of 10 places. Every item basically within the list should be a trend place in 2023, and we asked it to include the city and country for each place, right? So these are basically the ones that we're focusing on. On this prompt, you can actually take a look at, I changed from Colombia to Argentina, but the core difference is I'm including additional, generation configurations around temperature. I'm playing around with the temperature. Maybe if I want it to be more verbose, or if I want to reduce the top K metric that I'm currently using, as well as the top key. I can also play around with the candidate count and the max output tokens. And you can see how I'm going to be getting different variations on the output of Gemini model. I could also ask it to translate into Spanish, for example. And then you're playing around with two different tasks where this foundational model has been trained on, right? So generation as well as translation. And you can see the Spanish translation is being streamed as the output. So core components to take into account that you're passing on to the model generate content method. So the content, right, we're using a nice prompt. This is not a toxic prompt for us to actually say. And then you're passing on the generation config, which is basically the one that you set up previously, right? The next feature that I wanted to share with all of you is the safety ratings. So I won't deep dive into the safety ratings too much, but you can see that we're basically leveraging the same responses from the model, right? We're including the nice prompt that we basically used previously, the generation config, and we've set the true flag, the streaming flag to true. And then what you're seeing here is the feature, the safety feature, is actually taking each of the lines of text and categorizing or providing safety ratings for each of these. So around harm, is it low, high, or is it negligible, right? Around the hate speech, is it low, high, or negligible? Sexually explicit, low, high, negligible, low, high, and the other ratings for the category. I'll jump into a little bit more after we take a look at this on what those levels are. But you can see that across the board for harassment, hate speech, sexually explicit, and dangerous content, we're getting negligible, right? So the safety ratings are basically being applied, and from here on, you can see that every single phrase is basically going through that safety rating. So you can, if needed, block some of those outputs. So not only is Gemini built for safety from the ground up, you also have the safety ratings that you can, play around and move those levers to actually limit the type and amount of information that is being, if you want, outputted by the system, which is a very, very powerful, feature and tool when you're trying to build systems that, are basically safe, responsible, and explainable. The next one, is more featured around how test chat prompt or chat prompting is basically done with Gemini. So let me just run through this one. The prompt is pretty nice. I used you, Keelan, as a test for this one. My name is Keelan. You're my personal assistant. My favorite places that I have visited so far are Riviera Maya in Mexico, Tirón in Colombia, and the Iguazu Falls in Argentina. Wow, Keelan's been traveling quite a bit. Suggest another place I might like. And you can see the response from the model is Philippines, Palawan, Machu Picchu, Amazon rainforest, and then Petra, Jordan. Let's say I want maybe to narrow your response down to Southeast Asia. And you can see them all automatically starts narrowing down the responses, right? So all of the responses are basically focused in Southeast Asia. Now, this is pretty cool prompt, but where would you use it? So if you imagine these big sites where you're booking travel, or where every time there's a trendy place to visit, you could actually use Gemini to build some of these blog posts and to create content for those specific blog posts, right? So let's keep going, and you can see my next prompt within that turn-by-turn style chat is, so are those favorite places from Keelan based on a movie? It actually tells you it's not possible to determine, right? But it is possible that some of those favorite places, like the Iguazu Falls, was basically showcased, for example, in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of Crystal Skull and the Mission, right? If you're interested in finding whether the other ones, you can actually search online or check with the local library, for example, right? So you see, if it's not sure, it at least provides you additional context on where some of these were basically, existing. And then the next piece is you can actually print the chat history. So it is taking into account, the previous context, which is Bali, Indonesia, etc. And then it shows you the text that it's being fed into, and then the response that it's basically providing, right? All right. And that is for the text piece, which is pretty interesting. But some of the core capabilities that we've seen here are mainly around, the multimodality that Gemini Pro can actually bring to the table. So let's deep dive a little bit more onto how Gemini Pro Vision can, provide value to some of your use cases. So the first cells that we cover is we build a series of functions or methods to actually, handle the images and how they're displayed, get image bytes from URLs, basically the size of the images from a specific URL, loading the image from your URL, or getting the URL from Google Cloud Storage. And then the last one, printing the multimodal prompt as well, right? So the first one, very basic prompt. Again, let's start easy and then start deep diving into it. This is an image that I basically brought in from the web, and I called load from file. And my prompt is basically describe this image in Spanish. This is very important because as you can see previously, I've been prompting in English. And now what I'm prompting them all to do is actually to respond in Spanish and then translate it into English. And you can see, I'm also asking it if share the name of the place, trying to ask it to be very, very specific, very concise, so there's no hallucination involved. And when you see this picture, right, you can see the prompt below. The function was basically configured so you could see both. And then the response in Spanish, pretty straightforward. I won't go into it, but you can see in English, right, it shows a beautiful beach in Colombia. The water's crystal clear, turquoise blue. It's great on the description, right? Green mountain in the background. Some people may be sunbathing. It picked up on the folks there, but the core, I won't say shock, but very interesting piece is it called out Playa Blanca, located in Tayrona National Park. For those of you who haven't been in the in the region, there are multiple Playa Blanca beaches that are located in different parks. So it actually managed to pick up the specific beach, and I'm guessing it's because of the small huddle that you're seeing there, and it actually outputted the correct and very precise location of the image. All right. Now, what you can see here is we're working with, cloud storage URIs or URLs in the next prompt. And on this one, pretty straightforward prompt, describe the scene that, the image is basically showcasing. 2 pontoon boats are anchored in the Charles River in Boston, Massachusetts. In the background, there's a bridge and the Boston skyline. All right, very nice description of the picture. Again, when you're starting to take a look at use cases, you could probably think about, the small descriptions of images when within blog posts or within articles that you're basically building. It can actually automate that, content generation exercise. The next one is from a URL, right? So I grabbed a New York Stock Exchange picture and asked it, describe the scene, be very detailed in what is happening. So I'm actually running a little bit of prompt engineering, asking it to really deep dive into the image and provide a little bit more verbosity, right? So it does define that the scene is in the NYSE, New York Stock Exchange, but then what comes afterwards, it's large, open roof, central trading floor, many people on the trading floor, suits and ties, so it's picking up on the different people that are within the picture, right? Some of them might be gesturing, thinking. It might be a lot of noise, and there are also a lot of electronic screens on the walls. displaying stock prices and other financial information. So it kind of nailed that last piece of the description. So very interesting, again, how it picks up on the small details within the image and then basically outputs it via text. The next one is very, very interesting. So what you're doing here is now you're focusing on few-shot prompting, right? So again, prompting techniques, prompt engineering to try and extract value or more information from the models while you're providing information to the model within the context. So what we uploaded here is 3 different images. For image number 1 or landmark number 1, landmark number 2, we provided, this is the city, it's London, the landmark is Big Ben, and I shared, a positive event from, the fire in 1666. While it was very devastating, it actually birthed London's iconic parks like Hyde Park, St. James Park, offering a lot of green spaces for the society, right? And then city, Paris, landmark, Eiffel Tower. The Sorbonne University was one of the global centers of learning, shaping academic discipline through the years, and probably one of the first institutions in the world, right? But you can see here that what I'm sharing is image 1, prompt 1, image 2, prompt 2, and then I'm sharing an image. I won't tell you what it is, but you can see here, let me just stop here. I already prompted this and it picks up on the image. You're providing the context of that image for both London and Paris. And then the last one, let's run this, is Rome, right? The Colosseum. And you can see the response it brings back. So I did not provide the city tag, I did not provide the landmark tag, and I did not provide, the last positive historical event. It's actually creating all 3. City, Rome, landmark, Colosseum, positive historical event, the Renaissance, centered in Florence, Rome, birthed artistic masterpieces and scientific advancements that continue to shape modern society, I guess, thought and culture, right? So the power of this, multimodal feature is that you can mix both images and text to actually guide them all towards what it should be providing as a response for a new image that you're basically sharing with Gemini, right? And one core use case, again, talking about maybe booking companies or travel companies, this is a very, very efficient way, to help users every time they upload an image to their platform to add the different descriptions, the tagging, etc. So later on, when other users are basically jumping onto their platforms, they will be able to filter out based on user experience, customer experience, and the images and text that's basically generated by Gemini. The next one is focused on retail. Basically, the setup is very, very similar, where you have product number 1, product number 2, product number 3. And I actually already included the same, structure. The product is Pixel 1, the category is phone, and the description is advanced camera features, using Google AI, photo unblur, and magic eraser, all of the new AI features that are basically packed within Pixel 8. And the second product number 2 that I picked was Next Hub Max from our webpage. Category, displays, description, keep an eye on things at home with the built-in Nest Cam, etc., etc. And then the third one is a surprise. So I just fed in product number 3 into the prompt, right? Image number 3, and I'm asking it to provide a response given the structure of the few shot prompting that I shared with them. So you can see picture number 1 is the Pixel 8 phone, and you can check that I basically provided the prompting structure for few shot prompt. The second one is Next Hub Max and the specific description, and then the third I literally only provided the Pixel Buds image, and you can see the model is outputting the same structure that I basically provided through few shot prompt engineering, right? So the product, Pixel Buds Pro, the category, earbuds, and then the description. This is all content that Gemini is basically creating based on the previous structures and the previous prompts and context that I fed into the model. Again, very powerful use case, for example, for retail companies and big e-commerce companies that might be, getting a lot of products from different vendors, creating their own marketplaces within these e-commerce sites, and they might want to leverage, Gen AI to actually provide more verbose descriptions. So one key thing that we've seen around retail is, some of these products don't have the correct tagging to build the product catalog, to build the inventory, or to actually provide these specific descriptions, right? So providing a description created by Gemini can actually ultimately enhance the path to shopping cart, because there's a little bit more information for the end customer and the end users. The next one, and I probably have to go a little bit faster here, is for finance. So this is one that I actually was playing around last night. I provided, graphs and reports for 3 different stocks. Stock number 1 is Google. Stock number 2 is Amazon. And I actually picked, a couple of key components or key pieces of information within those images that I know is valuable for a specific type of analysis, right? So how much is the stock price up? How long ago, right? And what's the time period? 6 months. And then the price it's trading at. And what is basically the percentage? Is it increasing, decreasing in after hours, right? And then basically stating that the stock price has risen compared to July 23. And again, this is the image I provided. I provided the description. I provided second image with the specific description, right, on the different, if you want, variables or pieces of information that I wanted to extract. And you can see here, right, this is the image. And what I'm picking out is, the price, how much it has increased, the time frame, the after hours increase, and an analysis on the graph. Has it gone up since July 2023, or has it gone down? And same goes for Amazon, right? I ran through the same analysis, and you can see 2.63 up in the past 1 month. So you can see here I changed the time frame, and then it is trading at 149.97, and then it presented a decrease of 0%. Stock price has risen compared to November, right? Because it was a month. And then the last one, which is Meta Platforms, is just a stock price that I, picked. And you can see from the prompt, I am only sharing the image. The image is the only thing I'm passing. But since I'm running a few shot prompt tuning, right, this is all passed within the context. And what Gemini does is pretty impressive. You can see it identifies the ticker, right? So it's picking up where the ticker is basically located. It actually picks up on the industry. You can see I never prompted for the industry, but since industry is something that I'm asking as a response, it actually brings it up, social media, right? And then within the description, you can actually take a look, the stock price is down 1.49%. So it actually understood that red, and I'm guessing, the arrow going down means that the percentage is going down, right? And then it picks up on the time frame, 1 month. And then it is trading at 334.92 with an increase of 0.02% in after hours. So it is picking up on the increase. So the augmentation or the increase of 0.02% directly from the image. And the last one is probably one that shocks some of the folks that I actually present this, but you can see that Gemini is actually picking up a drop on the graph from November 27th, right? Or from November, the month, all the way out to, where we stand today. So the stock has actually fallen compared to November 2023. Very interesting. This actually unlocks a lot of use cases within the financial services industry. If you're in research, if you're in corporate advisory, etc., this can actually speed up a lot of the processes that you're running today internally. And the next one, really focused on text from a video file. You can see that, let me just run very quickly. We've got one. All right, that's a pretty impressive camera on the Pixel 8. But what am I doing? So I'm using Gemini to actually ask it for a series of questions. So please answer the following questions using the video only. What is the profession of the main person? What are the main features of the phone highlighted within the video? I think since we all took a look at it, we could basically determine what it was. What city was it recorded in? And then provide the answer in JSON. So you can see you're probably running 2 or 3 different tasks within this specific prompt that you're passing on to Gemini, right? And you get your JSON format, which is what you asked at the bottom. Again, you've got the profession, photographer, features, night sight, video boost, and then the city, Tokyo. Very, very powerful feature to actually run through the video modality and extract information from that specific video. And then last but not least, a very basic prompt, but very important prompt, right? So let's say you've tried Google Cloud's generative AI platform on Vertex AI. You're now looking for a Google team that can connect you with experts so they can help you innovate with confidence wherever in your cloud journey that you are, right? So who could possibly help you solve the biggest challenges with end-to-end services from migration to innovation, leveraging Google Cloud consulting expertise, technical knowledge, partner networks? So you can actually focus on what's most important to your business, right? That's a pretty dense prompt, but very interesting prompt, right? How can you move into production? Is there a team that can actually help you? And Gemini actually provides the response. So if once you've gone through the exercise of playing with Google Vision, moving into Vertex AI, running your POCs, you might need some help. Do keep in mind that Google Cloud Consulting is the team that can help you and basically partners very closely with you, partners, to actually build this into production. And that is all on my side. I think, Killen, we could possibly move into Q&A.
All right. Thank you, Crispin. Hope you all enjoyed that. So we'll get to questions in about 30 seconds. I know there were so many questions and I hope I got to most of them, but if I didn't, I just want to quickly point you to a number of amazing resources we have available. And I believe these are also linked in the YouTube post of this video. So if you don't have time to jot them down, just go back to that video. ai.google.dev. This is the best first resource for developers on Gemini. It's going to give you everything about Google AI Studio as well as Vertex AI Studio. So definitely bookmark that. A lot of the notebooks Crispin just demoed come from our amazing Gen AI repo there with a new Gemini folder. So check that out. Google Cloud Consulting there that Crispin just mentioned, and then a few of our community sites and tutorials. So definitely scan that QR code. Check out the YouTube if you need these links, but lots of great resources for you there. All right, let's get into it here. So we jotted down a few questions and took some live here, but we'll try to make the best use we can. in the last 10 minutes here. So first question is, how can developers integrate Gemini into their current applications? And I did get a couple questions in the chat about this, and I'll give you guys a quick verbal answer here as well. So the goal of a lot of the changes we made around developer experience for Gemini is to make it more cohesive with the rest of Google's developer experience or developer ecosystem. So that means more continuity between the API and the SDK on the Labs developer API to the Cloud developer API. That means integrations with Firebase and Flutter and a lot of the platforms that you app developers are using to build web apps or mobile apps with these LLMs. As well as just some kind of nuts and bolts improvements, like making our documentation better, providing more code samples, providing jump starts that are integrated with tools like Terraform. So a lot of the links that I just provided actually should hopefully give you some direction to get started here. But I just want to kind of mention again, these are managed APIs. They're super easy to get started with. You don't have to pay for the underlying hardware. You're just paying for inference. And in fact, we just made some changes to our pricing that should make them a lot more attractive for a lot of use cases. I'll also mention that as long as Gemini is in public preview, which is through mid-January, Gemini is free on cloud. So as you're sitting around enjoying the holidays, perhaps this is a good time to do some experimentation with those APIs while we are in this free period. All right. Is there any kind of RAG framework for Gemini usage? This is a good one for you, Crispin. I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Keelan. I think not specifically to Gemini, but what we've seen is working across the board with PaLM, Text Bison, and now with Gemini, the framework that currently exists, and we like to break it down into 3 stages, right? So the retrieval, generation, and combination stages. So the first step is clearly, the retrieval, where you basically look to retrieve those relevant documents from a specific corpus that you're querying. It can actually be done in a lot of ways or methods, right? So you can use keyword search, vector search, or neural ranking models to actually, extract the information and rank that specific piece of information that you want to extract. And then when you move into generation, those relevant documents after they've been retrieved is to generate a response using the Gemini model. That the model will actually take the retrieved documents as an input and generate a response that in theory should be relevant and coherent. It's very important to highlight that when we say relevant and coherent, we asked to what, right? And building evaluation frameworks is where we've seen a huge gap in a lot of folks that we've worked with and that we've also helped. The evaluation framework is literally at the heart of improving and really understanding if your generation retrieval stages are operating how they should be, and they're performant, right? And the last one is combination. So the final step, we can call it, a combined step of retrieving those documents with the generate response. It can actually be done using a lot of methods as well as concatenation, interpolation, or even in certain cases with reinforcement learning. So you see, it's a little building a RAG framework per se actually is at the core of building a Gen AI system, or thinking about leveraging LLMs more within an application, and thinking about how do you build a reliable system, how do you build a scalable system, and how do you put into place the guardrails like an evaluation framework that can actually bring the value that both your business and technical users are expecting. So if I could answer it that way, I'd probably say that's the type of RAG framework that should be used. And then on the second part of the question, what vector store is the best to use with Gemini? I think it depends, to be honest. Same as the previous question, right? It'll all depend on your use case. Some use cases might benefit from just vector search, for example, and we've seen some specific use cases really benefiting from just leveraging, re-ranking with vector search. But some other use cases that might require a little bit more in-depth analysis and verbosity and reasoning, you might start taking a look at something like using enterprise search or Google Vertex AI search as a retrieval component versus, building it from the ground up. Again, we've ran multiple benchmarks internally and for our customers, and the results ultimately are, it'll depend if you want to use Pinecone, Chroma, or any of the other, vector stores that are out there. It'll definitely depend on the use case that you're tackling.
Awesome. And I think, Crispin, this is another good one for you, given your area of focus. So any guidance to apply the capabilities against industry domains, so adapting the model for, specific, I guess, kind of vertical applications and use cases?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we need to think about these foundational models as, they're multitask and they're really good across a lot of these tasks. So, what we've seen is it again depends on the use case, but in that sense, we do have a more robust framework where you initially go through prompt engineering or prompt design, trying to see if, with a foundational model, with just an API, you can extract the information that you're looking for, or the performance that you're looking for a specific use case. Once you've built the evaluation framework, is there. If it's not there, probably the next best step is to build that RAG architecture, right? Retrieval augmented generative type of architecture. That can actually help you ground your system, your application, can reduce hallucinations, provide more conciseness, and you can actually, track across the end-to-end pipeline what you have to improve to actually get to the performance that you're looking for. The following steps, could be PFT, parameter efficient fine tuning, or we call it within the console supervised tuning, where you can again adapt the model that you have today towards a specific type of task and inject that type of industry domain knowledge that you're looking for. That also has some additional consequences that, again, they have to be covered within the evaluation framework, but that would likely be the next step. And then the last step is, if nothing that you've done previously is, and the performance is still not there, we would definitely recommend RLHF. And we've got a couple of additional features. I'm not quite sure I can call them out here, but there are a lot of additional features that can actually help you shift those models and adapt those models to your specific industry domain.
Awesome. And this last one, I can take this one quickly. And I know I got a lot of questions in the chat about BigQuery and other Google and Google Cloud products and how they use Gemini. So these are all great questions. So for you Workspace users, is Gemini coming to interface with Workspace? Absolutely. I hope for those of you that are using Workspace, you're familiar with Duet AI. It's now generally available in Workspace, and it's previously been powered by our PaLM model. So in early 2024, you'll see that switch over to Gemini, and that's going to enable both better quality as well as a sort of multimodal interaction points. And just kind of thinking more broadly, I know, again, going back to BigQuery and some of the other questions we got, what you're going to see over the next few months here is Gemini is really going to permeate not just Google Cloud products, but a lot of different products. So we've already talked about it. It's on Cloud. It's on Google AI Studio. It's in Pixel. It's coming to Workspace. It's coming to Duet, coming to Search and Conversation, which was another question we got. So as we sort of roll this model out and we get more feedback from folks like you, and it becomes generally available, you're really going to see Gemini becoming kind of the de facto, kind of power horse behind a lot of our LLM-enabled products and features, and so which in this day and age is virtually every product. So stay tuned. You'll definitely get some updates on early next year. As we mentioned earlier, we're currently in public preview with Gemini Pro, which means for you cloud users, you can use it for free until I believe it's mid-January. So please do hop into AI Studio. If you're not on cloud, you can go to Google AI Studio and just log in with any sort of Google account, like a Gmail account. That's also a really easy way to get started with some of those prompting experiences that Crispin showed. So with that, I know we're right about at time here. I want to thank you all so much for your engagement, for your questions. We are so excited to bring this model to market and get your feedback. So look forward to hearing more and look forward to seeing what you all build. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone, and go build.